The idea came to me on a Tuesday morning while I was fixing Mrs. Henderson's kitchen sink and watching my wife Diana through the window, talking on her phone in our backyard. She was laughing in a way I hadn't heard in years, gesturing animatedly, looking more alive and happy than she'd seemed in months when talking to me. When I asked her later who she'd been talking to, she said it was her sister. But Diana's sister lived in Oregon, and it was 6 in the morning there. That small lie, combined with dozens of other small inconsistencies over the past 2 years, planted a seed of doubt that grew into the most dangerous idea of my life. What if I pretended to be dead to see how Diana would really react when she thought I was gone forever? My name is Richard Patterson, but everyone calls me Rick. I'm 52 years old, and I've been married to Diana for 28 years. We have 2 adult children, Tyler, who's 26 and works in Nashville, and Ashley, who just turned 23 and got married last spring. I own Patterson Home Repairs, a small but successful business here in Cookeville, Tennessee, and Diana works as a receptionist at Dr. Marcus Webb's medical clinic downtown. For the first 25 years of our marriage, I thought we were happy. We weren't passionate like newlyweds, but we were comfortable, compatible partners in building a life together. We raised our kids, paid off our house, built my business from nothing into something that could support our family and give us a secure retirement. But something changed about 3 years ago. Diana became distant, distracted, less interested in our conversations and more interested in her phone. She started working longer hours at the clinic, staying late for inventory, or coming in early for special projects. She became critical of things that had never bothered her before. The way I dressed, the TV shows I watched, my eating habits, my friends. "Rick, you're 52 years old," she'd say. "Don't you think it's time you started taking better care of yourself? Eating healthier, exercising more, maybe seeing doctor. Webb, about your blood pressure?" She was right about the blood pressure. It had been creeping up over the past few years, probably from stress and too many late-night pizza dinners while working on business paperwork. Dr. Webb had prescribed medication and suggested lifestyle changes, which Diana enthusiastically supported by cooking healthier meals and buying expensive vitamins and supplements. But despite the medication and Diana's healthy cooking, I'd been feeling worse rather than better. Tired all the time, occasional dizziness, headaches, difficulty concentrating. Dr. Webb said these were normal side effects as my body adjusted to the medication, but something felt wrong. The breaking point came 3 weeks ago when Diana made an offhand comment that stopped me cold. We were watching a movie about a woman whose husband died young, leaving her free to pursue her dreams of traveling the world. "That doesn't look so bad," Diana said, seemingly to herself. "Starting over, making your own choices, not having to consider anyone else's needs." "Are you saying you want me to die so you can travel?" I asked, trying to make it sound like a joke. "Don't be ridiculous, Rick," she replied, but she didn't look at me when she said it. "I'm just saying that woman in the movie seems pretty happy with her new life." That night, lying in bed next to my wife of 28 years, I realized I had no idea what Diana would do if I actually died. Would she be devastated? Would she mourn me? Or would she see my death as liberation from a marriage that had become a burden? The more I thought about it, the more I needed to know the answer. I started planning my fake death the next day, but I knew I couldn't do it alone. I needed help from someone I trusted completely, someone who would go along with a crazy plan and keep it secret. That person was Tommy Briggs, my best friend since high school, and a former Army medic who now worked as a paramedic in the next county over. "Rick, this is the dumbest idea you've ever had," Tommy said when I explained my plan over beers at Murphy's Bar. "You want to fake your own death to test your wife? Do you realize how many ways this could go wrong?" "I just need to know, Tommy. I need to know if she loves me, or if she's just going through the motions until something better comes along." "And what if you find out she doesn't love you? What if she's relieved you're dead? Then what?" "Then at least I'll know the truth." Tommy stared at me for a long time, then shook his head. "You're my best friend, Rick. So I'm going to say this once. Healthy marriages don't require faking death to test love. If you're this unsure about Diana's feelings, you need marriage counseling, not an elaborate hoax. Tommy, please, 48 hours. That's all I need. Just long enough to see her immediate, unguarded reaction. This is insane, Rick. Will you help me or not? Tommy drained his beer and looked at me with the expression of a man agreeing to something he'd regret for the rest of his life. 48 hours, not a minute longer, and if this goes sideways, I'm telling everyone it was your idea. The plan was relatively simple, which made it believable. I would drive to Sparta, about 40 miles east of Cookville, to look at a potential job, a complete kitchen renovation for a wealthy retiree. This was the kind of big project that required an in-person estimate, so Diana wouldn't think twice about me making the trip alone. On the way back, I would stage a car accident on a rural stretch of Highway 111, a winding road through the Cumberland Mountains that was notorious for single-car accidents. Tommy would be waiting nearby in his personal truck. We'd damage my truck to look like it had gone off the road, set up some fake blood evidence, and make it appear that I'd been thrown from the vehicle and possibly fell into the Calf Killer River, which ran alongside that section of highway. Tommy would discover the accident and call it in through official channels. The story would be that I'd apparently lost control on a curve, the truck had rolled, and I'd been ejected. With no body immediately found, and evidence suggesting I might have fallen into the river, there would be hope that I was alive somewhere, injured and lost, but also the very real possibility that I had drowned, and the body had been swept downstream. This would give me a window to observe Diana's reaction while she was still processing the news and before she had time to put on whatever performance she thought was appropriate. Tommy had hunting cameras set up around our property and inside our house, officially for security, but actually so I could watch and listen to Diana from his hunting cabin about 30 miles away. "I still think this is the stupidest thing you've ever done," Tommy said, as we drove towards Sparta on the morning I was supposed to die. "But I've got everything set up. Cameras are live, the cabin's stocked with food, and I'll be monitoring police frequencies. 48 hours, Rick, that's it. That's all I need." The accident scene was more convincing than I'd expected. Tommy had really gone all out. My truck looked like it had genuinely rolled down an embankment. There was broken glass everywhere, and the fake blood he'd made using corn syrup and food coloring looked disturbingly realistic, splattered across the interior and leading toward the riverbank. "Jesus, Tommy, this looks like I actually died." "That's the point. If you're going to do this, we might as well do it right." I watched from behind a cluster of trees as Tommy called in the accident, his voice convincingly shaken as he reported finding my truck and the blood evidence, but no body. Within 20 minutes, the scene was swarming with county sheriff's deputies, state troopers, and search and rescue volunteers. I felt sick watching them organize search teams, knowing they were wasting time and resources looking for someone who was hiding half a mile away in the woods. But it was too late to back out now. The hardest part was watching Sheriff Martinez call Diana with the news. Tommy had given me a radio so I could monitor the frequency, and I heard Martinez's careful professional voice as he requested that someone come to the station to provide information about my habits, medical condition, and possible state of mind. "Mrs. Patterson, I need you to understand that we haven't found your husband yet, but we have found evidence of a serious accident. We're treating this as a search and rescue operation, but I want you to be prepared for any possibility." I couldn't hear Diana's response, but 20 minutes later, I was in Tommy's cabin, watching her through the hidden cameras as she hung up the phone and stood in our kitchen, processing the news that her husband of 28 years was probably dead. What I saw in that moment changed everything I thought I knew about the woman I'd married. Diana didn't cry. She didn't scream or collapse or show any of the reactions you'd expect from a woman who just learned her husband was missing and possibly dead. Instead, she stood perfectly still for about 30 seconds, then walked calmly to the kitchen drawer where we kept important phone numbers and pulled out a small piece of paper. She dialed a number and waited for someone to answer. "It's me," she said when the call connected. "It happened. Rick's dead." My blood went cold. Not Rick's been in an accident or Rick is missing. She said Rick's dead with complete certainty, as if she'd been expecting this call. "I know it's sooner than we planned," she continued, "but this is actually better. No one will question a car accident, and we don't have to worry about the other thing anymore." "The other thing? What other thing?" "No, I'm fine. I'm not upset. I'm relieved, actually. I can finally stop pretending." Diana's voice was calm, almost businesslike. "How soon can you get here? I need to start making the appropriate calls, and I want to make sure we have our story straight." She hung up and immediately dialed another number. "Tyler. Honey, I need you to sit down. There's been an accident." Now her voice changed, becoming shaky and emotional. "Your father. We don't know for sure, but it looks like he was in a car accident and they can't find him. They think he might have... Honey, you need to come home." The performance was flawless. Diana had transformed from cold and calculating to grief-stricken mother in the space of a single phone call. She made similar calls to Ashley and to her sister in Oregon, each time delivering the news with perfect amounts of shock, disbelief, and maternal strength, but it was all an act. I had just watched my wife of 28 years receive news of my death with relief rather than grief. 20 minutes later, a silver Mercedes pulled into our driveway, and Dr. Marcus Webb got out. Diana met him at the door, and they embraced, not like a doctor consoling a patient, but like lovers who had been separated. "Are you sure no one saw you come here?" Diana asked as they walked into our living room. "I told my wife I was making a house call. We have maybe an hour before I need to be back at the clinic." Dr. Webb was a distinguished man in his mid-50s, married with teenage children, respected in the community. I'd been going to him for my blood pressure medication for the past 2 years, trusting him with my health and my life. "Marcus, I can't believe it's finally over," Diana said, sitting close to him on our couch, the same couch where she and I used to watch movies together. "I was starting to think we'd have to go through with the original plan." "The original plan?" Dr. Webb asked. "You know, gradually increasing the dosage until his heart gave out." "This is so much cleaner." I stared at the monitor screen, unable to process what I was hearing. Diana and Dr. Webb had been planning to kill me. They'd been slowly poisoning me with my own blood pressure medication, planning to cause a heart attack that would look completely natural. "Diana, you need to be careful about what you say, even here. If anyone ever investigated..." "Oh, who's going to investigate? Rick was 52, overweight, stressed about his business, with high blood pressure and a family history of heart disease. If he died of a heart attack, no one would have questioned it. And a car accident on Highway 111? That road kills someone every few months. What about the life insurance? 500,000 plus the business plus the house. We'll have to wait a reasonable amount of time before we start seeing each other openly, but we can be discreet." "How long?" 6 months, maybe a year. Long enough for people to think I'm slowly healing from my grief and ready to find love again. They had it all planned out. Diana would mourn appropriately, gradually recover with Dr. Webb's professional and then personal support, and eventually they would marry and live off the money from my death. "There's one thing we need to discuss," Dr. Webb said. "The blood pressure medication I've been giving Rick. We need to make sure there's no trace of it anywhere. I've been giving him double doses disguised as normal pills, but if anyone ever tested..." "I threw out all his medications this morning, right after I got the call, poured them down the garbage disposal and put the bottles in the neighbor's trash. They had been poisoning me for months, maybe years. All those times Diana had lovingly handed me my heart medication with breakfast, she'd been slowly killing me. All those visits to Dr. Webb's office where he'd checked my blood pressure and expressed concern about my numbers, he'd been monitoring the progress of his own murder plot. "Marcus, I have to ask, are you sure about this, about us? Because once we start this charade, there's no going back." "Diana, I've been sure since the day we met. You're everything Sarah isn't, passionate, exciting, willing to take risks for what you want. I've been trapped in a loveless marriage for 20 years, just like you've been trapped with Rick." "Rick wasn't a bad husband," Diana said, and for a moment I thought she might show some remorse. "He was just boring, predictable, content with his small life and his small dreams. I wanted more, and now you can have it." They kissed on my couch, in my living room, while the entire community was organizing search teams to look for my body. I sat in Tommy's cabin, watching the live feed of my wife celebrating my death with her lover, and felt something break inside me that could never be repaired. This wasn't just about Diana not loving me anymore. She had been actively planning my murder, had been poisoning me for months, had been counting down the days until my death freed her to live the life she wanted. Tommy found me staring at the monitor with tears streaming down my face. "Rick, Jesus, what happened? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I have seen a ghost, Tommy. I've seen the ghost of my marriage, my trust, my entire fucking life." I told him what I'd witnessed, played back the recordings of Diana and Dr. Webb's conversations. Tommy listened in stunned silence, then grabbed his keys. "We're going to the sheriff right now. This is attempted murder, Rick. They've been poisoning you." "Wait," I said. "If we go now, they'll just deny everything. It's my word against theirs, and I've already committed fraud by faking my death. Who's going to believe me? So what do you want to do?" "I want to let this play out a little longer. I want to see how far they'll go, get more evidence of their plan, and then I want to destroy them both." Over the next 24 hours, I watched my own funeral being planned. Diana met with Pastor Williams from our church, selected readings and hymns, chose a casket from the funeral home catalogue. She played the grieving widow perfectly. Tearful, but brave, devastated but determined to honor my memory. But when she thought no one was watching, when she was alone in our house, she was a different person. She went through my personal belongings like she was preparing for a garage sale, sorting things into piles of keep, sell, and donate. She found my hidden emergency cash, $3,000 I'd kept in a coffee can in the garage, and counted it with obvious satisfaction. She called a real estate agent to discuss eventually selling the house, though she made it clear she wasn't ready yet. She researched how long she'd have to wait to collect my life insurance. She even started looking at vacation packages online, planning trips she'd never been able to take with her boring husband. Dr. Webb visited twice more, and each time they talked about their future together with the excitement of teenagers planning to run away together. They discussed selling my business, moving to a larger city where they could start fresh, maybe even leaving the state entirely. "The beauty of this whole situation," Diana said during one of these conversations, "is that everyone will see it as a tragic accident that brought us together through shared grief. Marcus comforting the widow of his patient, a natural and beautiful love story that emerged from tragedy. You're brilliant, Diana. I can't believe I wasted all these years with Sarah when you were right there waiting for me. We both wasted years in marriages that were slowly killing us, but now we're free." On the second night, I couldn't watch anymore. I turned off the monitor and sat outside Tommy's cabin, staring at the stars and trying to process the fact that the woman I'd loved and trusted for 28 years had not only stopped loving me, but had been actively plotting my death. The worst part wasn't even the attempted murder. It was the casual way she'd erased me from our shared life. 28 years of marriage, and she'd discarded me as easily as she'd thrown away my blood pressure medication. I wasn't a husband she'd fallen out of love with. I was an obstacle she'd removed. "Time's up, Rick," Tommy said the next morning. "You said 48 hours, and it's been 48 hours. We need to end this now before it gets any more complicated." "I know. I'm ready." "What do you want to do?" "I want to go home." The plan for my resurrection was simpler than my death had been. Tommy would find me stumbling along a back road, confused and injured but alive, claiming I'd been knocked unconscious in the accident and had spent 2 days lost in the woods with a concussion. It was a believable story. People survived car accidents and wandered in shock for days before finding help. The head injury would explain any gaps in my memory about the accident itself. "Rick, are you sure you want to confront them directly? Wouldn't it be better to let the police handle this?" "Tommy, I've been legally dead for 48 hours. Diana has probably already started insurance paperwork. Dr. Webb has been dosing me with medication designed to kill me slowly. I think a direct approach is exactly what this situation calls for." At 3 p.m. on Friday afternoon, exactly 49 hours after my death, Tommy dropped me off at the end of our street. I was dirty, disheveled, and genuinely exhausted from 2 days of the most intense emotional trauma of my life. I walked slowly up our street, knowing that neighbors would see me and that word would spread quickly. Mrs. Henderson from across the street was the first to spot me. "Rick! Rick! Oh my God, Rick, you're alive!" She ran toward me, tears streaming down her face. "Everyone's been looking for you. Diana thought you were dead." "I'm okay, Mrs. Henderson, just confused and tired." "Is Diana home?" "Yes, Oh, Rick, she's going to be so happy. Everyone's going to be so happy." Mrs. Henderson ran ahead to alert the neighborhood while I continued walking toward my house, toward the confrontation that would end my marriage and probably send my wife to prison. Diana's car was in the driveway, along with Dr. Webb's Mercedes. Perfect timing. I used my key to let myself in through the front door, calling out as I entered, "Diana, I'm home." I heard a crash from the kitchen, followed by Diana's voice, high-pitched with panic. Rick, is that you?" "It's me, honey. I'm okay." Diana appeared in the hallway, looking like she'd seen an actual ghost. Behind her, Dr. Webb stood frozen in the kitchen doorway, his face pale with terror. "Rick, oh my God, Rick, we thought you were dead," Diana said, but she didn't run to embrace me. She stood perfectly still, calculating, trying to figure out how much I knew and how much danger she was in. "I was in an accident, but I'm okay. Just confused and tired. I've been lost in the woods for 2 days." "Lost in the woods," Diana repeated. "For 2 days." "That's right. I don't remember much after the accident, but I finally found a road and flagged down a passing truck. The driver brought me home." Dr. Webb stepped forward, slipping back into his professional persona. "Rick, you need immediate medical attention. A head injury serious enough to cause 2 days of confusion could indicate a severe concussion or brain trauma." "I'm fine, Dr. Webb. What I need is to talk to my wife." "Rick, as your physician, I'm strongly recommending—" "As my physician, Dr. Webb, how long have you been giving me double doses of blood pressure medication?" The silence that followed was deafening. Diana's face went completely white and Dr. Webb looked like he was going to vomit. "I don't know what you mean, Rick," Dr. Webb said, but his voice was shaking. "I mean, the conversation I listened to 2 days ago where you and my wife discussed how you'd been slowly poisoning me with my heart medication, planning to cause a heart attack that would look natural. I mean the conversation where you both celebrated my death and planned your future together using my life insurance money." Diana found her voice. "Rick, you were in an accident. You have a head injury. You're confused, imagining things. Diana, I heard you tell Dr. Webb that you threw away all my medications and put the bottles in the neighbor's trash. I heard you discuss how long you'd have to wait before you could start dating openly. I heard you call Tyler and tell him I was dead before you even knew whether I was dead or alive." "That's impossible. You were lost in the woods." "No, Diana. I was hiding in Tommy Briggs's hunting cabin, watching you through security cameras, listening to you plan my funeral while fucking my doctor on our living room couch." The confession came pouring out of me. The fake death, the surveillance, the 48 hours of watching my wife celebrate my murder with her lover. With each detail, Diana and Dr. Webb looked more trapped, more desperate. "You faked your own death?" Diana's shock seemed genuine. "You spied on me. I wanted to see how you'd react if you thought I was really gone, Diana. I thought the worst I'd discover was that you didn't love me anymore. I never imagined I'd find out you'd been actively trying to murder me for months." Dr. Webb made a break for the door, but I was ready for that. Tommy had been waiting outside and intercepted him in the driveway. "Going somewhere, Doc?" The next few hours were a blur of police interviews, evidence collection, and arrest warrants. The medications Diana had thrown away were recovered from the neighbor's trash. Dr. Webb's medical records showed a pattern of prescribing excessive dosages. The security footage from Tommy's cameras provided clear evidence of their conspiracy. Diana was arrested on charges of attempted murder and conspiracy. Dr. Webb faced similar charges, plus medical malpractice and abuse of his position as a physician. Both were denied bail due to the premeditated nature of their crimes. The media attention was overwhelming. The story of a man who faked his own death and discovered his wife's murder plot became national news. I was portrayed as either a clever hero who exposed a sinister conspiracy or a deranged husband who violated his wife's privacy and committed fraud to spy on her. The legal proceedings took almost 2 years. Diana pled guilty to attempted murder in exchange for a reduced sentence of 15 years. Dr. Webb went to trial, was convicted on all charges, and received 25 years plus the loss of his medical license. Tyler and Ashley were devastated, not just by their mother's crimes, but by my decision to fake my death to test her. Our relationship has been strained ever since. They understand intellectually that Diana was trying to kill me, but emotionally they can't forgive me for the elaborate deception that exposed her. "Dad, why didn't you just talk to Mom about your concerns?" Ashley asked me during one of our difficult conversations. "Why did you have to go to such extreme measures?" "Because, sweetheart, I thought the worst problem in our marriage was that your mother didn't love me anymore. I never imagined that she was literally trying to murder me. If I'd confronted her directly, I would have ended up dead, and everyone would have thought it was a tragic heart attack." Ew. The physical effects of the slow poisoning took months to reverse. Dr. Webb had been giving me nearly triple the normal dose of blood pressure medication, which explained the fatigue, dizziness, and cognitive problems I'd been experiencing. A different doctor told me that if the poisoning had continued for another 6 months, I likely would have suffered the fatal heart attack Diana and Dr. Webb were planning. 3 years later, I'm still processing the psychological impact of learning that someone I trusted completely had been systematically trying to kill me. I've been through extensive therapy, both individual and group sessions with other victims of domestic violence and attempted murder. The hardest part isn't forgiving Diana. I realized long ago that the woman who tried to kill me wasn't the woman I married 28 years ago. The hardest part is trusting anyone again, believing that people are who they seem to be, rather than elaborate performances designed to hide their true intentions. I sold the business and moved to a different state, partly to escape the media attention and partly because I couldn't bear to live in the house where I'd watched my wife celebrate my death. I'm dating someone new, a woman named Margaret who's a widow herself and understands something about loss and betrayal. "Rick," she asked me recently, "do you regret faking your death? Do you wish you'd handled the situation differently?" "I regret that it was necessary," I told her. "I regret that I was married to someone capable of planning my murder. But I don't regret exposing the truth, even though it cost me my relationship with my children and destroyed any faith I had in my ability to judge people's character." "Would you do it again?" "Margaret, if I ever reach the point where I feel like I need to fake my own death to test someone's love, I hope I have the wisdom to just end the relationship instead." The experience taught me that there's a difference between love that's complicated, difficult, or even fading, and love that's actually dangerous. Diana didn't just fall out of love with me, she actively wanted me dead, and she was willing to commit murder to get what she wanted. If you're watching this story and you're in a relationship where you feel like you need to test your partner's love through deception, please consider that the problem might not be their feelings. It might be the relationship itself. Healthy love doesn't require surveillance, testing, or proof. It exists in daily kindness, honest communication, and mutual respect. Hit that subscribe button if you believe that trust is the foundation of any real relationship, and let me know in the comments what city you're watching from. Sometimes the most dangerous person in your life is the one you trust the most, and sometimes the only way to save yourself is to let them think they've already destroyed you. I pretended to be dead to see how my wife would react, and I learned that she'd been trying to make it a reality. Sometimes the worst thing you can discover about someone is that they're exactly who they've been pretending not to be.